I'll never forget, because he wanted to be married in his whites. And so then he went back to base. And when he went back to base, the Catholic priest, the chaplain, said, "You were just married." He said, "Yeah, who told you, Father?" And I don't know who told him, but anyway, he said, "I'm going to try to get you a couple of more days with your bride." I got pregnant. So, and with that, the war ended in 45 in Europe, and we thought he'd be discharged. He became a hero for saving this man. He was one of 69 survivors on 2 ships in the North Atlantic in February. It went down. Most of them either froze to death or drowned or were burnt to death.
My God.
And so all of these things were, in a way, they were kind of miraculous. There's a lot to tell you about it, and maybe you should know it in order to know me. But while Ed made one trip across the North Atlantic before we married, he never made a trip across the North Atlantic after we were married, because the war was ending then. And this one trip, he got off his ship in Scotland, and he was alone, and he looked in a puddle, is how he put it. He stepped over a puddle, and he looked in it and knew something was terribly wrong with me.
Really?
Mm-hmm. My appendix ruptured. The doctors did not want to operate because they told my parents it was useless, that I wasn't going to make it because the poison had gone already through my system. I had an experience where I could see my father outside of my room at this Catholic hospital. I could see a nun, and I could see my mother at the foot of my bed. And I could see a sailor kneeling down next to my bed.
That was your husband?
He was my boyfriend.
Oh, boyfriend at the time.
Yes. And I was above it. I guess I was out of my body. I knew nothing about being out of body, though. But that's what was happening to me. So things like this, yes, they must have been predestined, as you put it. I believe that wholeheartedly. And so with all of this, when we did get married, and thought he was going to be discharged, he was sent to Japan. He was sent to the West Coast for the invasion of Japan. If he was, I would have never had my husband.
Wow.
I would have never, ever had him. His ship was numbered, and I knew all that. I have a letter. I didn't even know this was possible. I have a letter. I have all his letters in my Laurelton Hall briefcase. And he tells about the commander telling them that there was going to be a bomb drop that could end the war. But of course we don't believe that. That is what one of his letters states.
Wow.
I didn't know that it was ever known to anybody. I never knew that. And then, you know, that's all packed away. Right now, I'm still not to a time where I can read things like that, you know, all these letters. I can't do that at all. So he was one of the men that they picked on certain ships to go in to Japan as voice radio. They asked him if he knew anything about voice radio. They asked a lot of sailors on a lot of ships. Now, not many men knew anything about voice radio, but he did. And so he was sent into in 2000, in 2000, and going into 2001, we were in Japan. We worked with Buddhist monks in the mountains of Japan regarding exorcisms and hauntings. It was fun. Oh, it was fabulous. It was just absolutely fabulous. Ed spoke some Japanese because he had gone in as report director, and so he understood some Japanese. I understood nothing. It's a very hard language, but I certainly understood the people themselves. You know, you don't need to
Right.
sometimes speak the language, but you are
Okay.
able somewhat to communicate without speaking a language. And so what happened was, we were there, and one night at dinner, this was all filmed for national TV in Japan, and these Buddhist monks were willing to go along with this, which was really different, very different, that they would be willing to
Really?
go along. Oh, yes, Buddhist religion,
Oh, right.
oh, God, but they're beautiful. Oh, God, those priests are beautiful. When Ed and I arrived, were two Roman Catholics from America. When we arrived, this long driveway, these monks were all lining it with tapers. You felt so humbled by that, so humbled by it. And we did investigate quite a few hauntings. We were involved in exorcisms that were there. The last exorcism that we were involved in, I knew something was wrong with Ed. And he said to them, I have to go in the car. There's a funny cold that's coming over me. A funny cold. I thought he was coming down with a cold. So on the way back, flying back, I have to backtrack. At dinner this one night, I said in English something that really embarrassed my husband. I said, are we going anywhere near Nagoya? And they said, yes. I said, it would mean the world to me if I could stand on the dock where my husband stood when he got the letter that our daughter was born, and go to the other part of this dock where the ship came that would bring him home. This is what I said.
Okay.
Japan now is nothing like the Japan Ed knew. Japan right now is like a massive, massive Disneyland with car makers all over the place. Gorgeous buildings. I'm driving a Honda. But I don't know how my husband would feel about that because we always had American cars. But I like that little Honda. And this is the second one I bought. So, or leased. I'm leasing.
Oh.
So, anyway, it is
Better
beautiful.
on gas anyway.
They're wonderful. They're wonderful. I'm sorry, honey. So, we're having dinner for the second time this one night, and the camera crew's going back to Tokyo. And I thought, why aren't we going back to Tokyo? You know, everything about us was being filmed. And that night, we were staying in this hotel. And, they're mansions. You should see these hotels. We were on the 42nd floor.
Oh, wow.
And Ed looked out the window. He was standing there. And I heard him say something.